from Goalpost Studios in downtown East Lansing, Michigan,
Hello and welcome to the Earn More, Keep More show.
where it's our job to give you tips, tricks, and strategies to earn more and keep more. I'm Dave McAndrews, and I believe that we should focus our marketing on messages that are all about our clients so that we can connect with them in a way that they can understand.
And I'm Matt Love, and I believe in being efficient with our companies so that we are able to keep more of what we make.
Me up beautifully, and that's why I stay plugged in, and I always contribute to my community.
So I'm pretty excited about the topic that we're going to be going into today.
Are you?
The idea of retirement planning. And I want to paint the most vivid picture that I possibly can for people. The first time that I heard this message from you.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
You know how...
Oh no, am I going to like this story? Is this good or bad?
I don't know. I don't know. It says more about me than it does about you.
Okay. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Let's play a game.
You know how when you're a little boy and you're first learning how to use the toilet and you don't really understand how to hold the pants up?
Yeah.
So the pants go straight down to the ankles and you kind of stand there peeing?
Yeah.
That's how I felt.
Really?
I felt like I was standing with the pants down around my ankles because of the fact that it seemed so clear once you explained it,
Yeah.
but seemed like nobody had ever explained it to me that.
Well, for the listeners at home, just so everyone knows, the pants are up now.
The pants are up. I got a belt.
Everything is good. And I think what you're saying is that, my goodness, you were exposed in a way that you had no idea prior to us talking.
Absolutely. Bare ass to the world.
So this goes into the reason we started this whole podcast. You know, we believe that people are out there trying to succeed in business, and there's two ways to succeed in business. That's it. You either make more sales or you keep the sales the same and you reduce the cost in which it took to get those sales. And in my practice, I do financial stuff. One of the biggest misconceptions is when it comes to retirement planning. So when we first met, I just basically asked you a couple of simple questions, which most typical financial planners are not asking.
Yeah, you want to run through some of those?
Yeah, so I think that one of my favorite quotes is that you do not need a retirement plan to retire. You need money. And where we keep our money is more important than what it can actually earn. Think about this. You're shaking your head because you get it.
Yeah.
Think about this. In business, we have what's called overhead. So let's say I do $1 million in sales, but it cost me $950,000 to get there. That's really not very successful, right? You're only making $50,000 a year in profit. Versus, well, imagine having a business that does $500,000 in sales, but you only spent $100,000 to get there.
And what you're describing is the growth trap.
You got it.
Absolutely. And so many entrepreneurs out there are all about, okay, how do I drive revenue? How do I continue to do that? But at the same time, they are driving expense, and their subsequent dollar is so much more expensive than some of the lower dollars that a lot of them wish that they could turn back the clock and say, I wish I was half as big but making twice as much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, nobody knows what they don't know. So this whole episode is really just to teach people about how some assets work, how retirement plans work.
You don't know what you don't know.
And the key is when you can turn a problem into a process, the problem goes away. Every time, let's say, for example, I have clients that say, Matt, I want to buy a car. Should I go do it? I have no idea. But I will give you the tools so that you can evaluate what it looks like if you did buy the car. I'm not going to tell you if you should. Matt, I want to put money into a retirement account. Should I? I have no idea. My job is to show you what it looks like if you do. So you turn that question, turn that problem into a process, and I'll give you the filter of how to evaluate the question and how to look at that. You're a big boy, you're a big girl, you can think for yourself. You tell me what you want to create. I've never had more fun than I am right now in my career just giving people what they want. It's amazing how the industry teaches people to be confused, and they come up with big words like derivatives and trading and puts and calls, and they make it so complex that the average investor thinks, yeah, you know what, this is over my head. Truth is, guys, it's not. It's not over our head. One of the biggest assets in this country right now as a whole is retirement plans. People have a lot of money in 401ks, IRAs, SEPs, RSEPs, simple IRAs, qualified retirement accounts. are upwards of $25 trillion right now. Those are, here, everyone listening at home.
That's more than the national debt.
You know, isn't that ironic?
Huh.
You know
Interesting.
that 25 trillion is pre-tax? Remember when I mentioned cost when it comes to businesses? Think about this. If everyone in the country right now took money out of their retirement account, not even counting the penalty if you're under the age of 59 and a half, 40% of that money goes to the IRS. When you account for the federal tax, the state tax, the Obamacare tax, the healthcare taxes, local taxes within the city, 40% belongs to the government. Nancy Pelosi is quoted as saying is the money in your retirement account is not yours, it's hers. It's pre-tax dollars. So there's $20 trillion in debt. There's over $20 trillion in retirement accounts. Do you think the government's not sitting back just waiting for grandma and grandpa to retire? When that money becomes liquid, the IRS gets paid first.
Yeah.
That's scary.
I started my business about 4 years ago. And going from kind of the employed mentality to what a lot of our listeners are, you know, that business owner, executive, and changing that mentality from employed to now I'm the employer. And one of the things that, you know, my CPA is telling me is, man, that $4,500 a year that you can put into that IRA, that you don't have to pay taxes on that.
Yeah, yet. Did
he never mentioned the yet.
Did he forget that word?
Yes, yes. There was no mention of the word yet.
Yeah, that's funny. It's convenient how you know, here's my theory. I'm writing a book on this subject too. It's called Confessions of a Financial Advisor.
How many books are you writing, man?
Many. My English teacher in high school would make fun of me right now because I'm not a good writer. But I've learned a lot that people want to know. Confessions of a Financial Advisor. Why your advisor loves your IRA more than you do. You want to know why? It's really simple. The CPA comes alongside you as a business owner and says, look, I'm going to save you taxes this year. But he doesn't say this year. Mm-hmm. So when you put money to the IRA, you don't get a tax deduction. Technically, it's called a tax deferral. I call it a postponement. It's a tax postponement, but that doesn't sound as good as deferral.
And I think one of the big differentiators between kind of your typical employee and a business owner is a business owner's mentality going into retirement or even thinking about retirement. One, I don't really believe that retirement is going to exist for us in the way that it has for
typical entrepreneur. I think very similar.
So from that standpoint, that idea of retirement, you know, it's a much different one than a pensioned employee that worked for Ford for 40 years or whatever. The mentality I bring to the table now is the employed method is, oh, well, I'm not going, when I need that money, I'm not going to be working, and therefore my tax bracket is going to be much lower, so I'll save a lot more versus the dollars that I have today. You're telling me that is...
Okay, look, I love this conversation because financial advisors love to talk about this fictitious event called retirement. Now, it does happen for some people, but I guarantee no 65-year-old wants to hang it up for the rest of their life and do nothing. They get bored. Every day becomes a Saturday. So they do things. Maybe they're a consultant in their own business. Maybe they're making flies for fly fishing and selling those on. I mean, you could do anything. You're not going to just sit around and do nothing. So this event called retirement is such a misconception. When an advisor tells you you're going to retire in a smaller tax bracket, you need to ask them how. The only answer they can tell you is that you are going to live on less income than you do today. Now, I could take a poll for all the listeners out there. Who defines financial success as taking a pay cut? Ready, go, raise your hand.
That's a negatory.
Negatory. No one is going to say that financial success looks like spending less. My clients, look, if I said, I would be embarrassed if I said, look, I'm going to show you how to retire. It's going to be great. You got to just live on half. No. What kind of advising is that? The truth is, if you run a business, think about this. You can control some things, and some things you can't. You can't control sales. We can influence them. We cannot control them. I can control how much I pay for rent to an extent. I could find the cheap rent district. Now, there has ramifications. But in the financial planning world, it's very simple to control a certain few aspects, and it comes down to three main things that we can control. Asset management fees, market fluctuation, and taxation. Here's a little tidbit. Did you know that the income tax is the only tax that's required on the dollar that you make? What you make in income is taxable. What you do with your dollar after you pay your income tax will determine how many taxes you pay going forward. So you got to ask yourself, are you working with a CPA that does tax returns? Or are you working with a CPA that does tax planning? Tax planning is much different. They understand the ramifications of taking money out. I joked and said you don't need a retirement plan to retire. You need money. And where your money sits is more important than the rate of return. And here's why. Let's say you have $1 million in your 401k. A lot of people think that's successful. And I would argue that is a good thing. I mean, we're talking about a good problem here. But you got to ask your advisor one question. How much is mine? I had a meeting today with a young lady who's doing very well, great company. And she said she had a meeting with her advisor on Thursday. I said, great, you need to ask her one question. How much of your retirement account is yours? What do you think he would say? All of it.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Then ask the next question. If I take it all out tomorrow, how much can I deposit in my bank account?
Well, there's certain tax implications
exactly.
in that one.
Time out. You just told me that account was mine. But if I take it out, I don't get all that? Really? There's a federal government, state government, perhaps local government. Medicare costs go up and Social Security becomes taxable.
We are in East Lansing, and we voluntarily voted ourselves a tax increase by way of City of East Lansing.
Did you really?
We sure did.
Gotta love it.
Not that I necessarily voted for it, but the people.
Exactly.
It's the people.
So you pay this tax then when you take it out, and you are lucky right now. Let's call it a 40% tax. So if you have $1 million, you pay 40% in taxes. You might keep $600,000. That is a much different number than $1 million.
That's significant.
You know why your advisors and all these big companies love these financial institutions love qualified retirement accounts?
Big numbers under management.
They charge a fee on your account value, on the portion that's yours, and the portion that you have to give to the IRS. You take out $1 million today, $400,000 goes to the government. $600,000 goes to your bank account. These are round numbers here, people. This isn't exact science here. $600,000 goes into your bank account, $400,000 goes to the IRS. However, if you kept the $1 million in the account, does the IRS send you a check to help pay for the asset manager's fee to manage that account?
No, I'm pretty sure I just paid it for all of the time I had it under management every single year.
Regardless if it goes up or down, you pay the fee on your assets and the part that belongs to the IRS. Now, here's another question. You're taking risk, and I'm sure your advisor had you take a risk assessment based on how much risk is appropriate for you, which is just asset allocation.
By the way, has
jargon.
Anyone ever done one of those that was more than just purely taking a dart and throwing it at the board?
Oh yeah, I mean it's almost a joke that 85% of asset managers don't even beat the index when it comes to investing. So they do these risk assessment tests for people to make the client feel good, like they're going through, oh look honey, they really care. They're going to see what kind of risk. All they're saying is, how much of your wealth are you willing to lose? And if we lost a lot, would you care? Yeah? Okay, we'll put you in a smaller risk environment. That's all it is.
Yeah. Do I want to sue my advisor or not?
Exactly.
How do we CYA?
Exactly. I got a master's in architecture. In order to be a licensed architect, you need a professional degree, which is a 4-year degree plus a postgraduate degree. You need 3 years of an internship. Then you have to pass like anywhere from 6 to 8 tests that are like 5 to 8 hours long each. And you know what you get at the end? Liability. That's it. Your income might not even go up. Now, in the financial world, you know how hard it was to do what I do today? I studied over the weekend. You know why that is? Institutions want the advisors to be in sales. They want to sell widgets. Institutions, these banks and these big companies on Wall Street make widgets for people to buy, namely a retirement plan. You want to retire? Put your money in a retirement account. We'll charge you a fee for the rest of your life, whether it goes up or down. I'm going to get paid. I'll never show you how to spend it, but I will disclose how I'm charging you a 1% fee. By the way, I am not required by law. No advisor in the country is required by law to teach anyone how the distributions work of a retirement plan. Because the government doesn't want them to know that 40% of your account belongs to the IRS. They want you to focus on the 1% management fee that you might be losing.
That's incredible.
Now, again, these are round numbers, so anyone who's listening, obviously, these are good problems to have. If you have $1 million in a 401k, cool, I like it. But you're talking about extremely inefficient ways to not only spend wealth, but pass wealth on. Because you're postponing a tax bill.
Yeah,
you know what's funny? Like most of the clients I talk with, most clients that hate debt the most have the most amount of debt. And here's why. They're paying off their house. please listen to the previous shows that we've done. They're paying off their house, which is a phenomenal asset to have someone else pay for you, by the way. And it's one of the last true tax deductions. And they're funding an account they can't calculate how much is actually theirs in a 401k or an IRA or a SEP or any sort of qualified retirement plan.
Matt, one of the things that you've mentioned a couple times now is this idea of deferral versus deduction. And this is one of those things that, honestly, it has never come up with any conversation I have ever had with a CPA, with anybody in finance, any banker, anything.
Crazy to me.
All they ever talk about is, how do you pay less this year?
Yeah.
Ever. Let's maximize that.
Yeah.
Nobody ever told me that, hey, you know what, there's a choice to be made here.
Yeah, that's totally true. You ever heard of the phrase kicking the can down the road?
Absolutely.
Just don't deal with it now, you can deal with it later.
Which is a fantastic American mindset.
It's very popular, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't call it, it's fantastically popular, not
popular.
a fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah, but that's exactly how it works. The difference of a deferral and a deduction is huge.
Sure.
And now think about it as a business owner. A deduction would be an example. An example of a deduction would be like a business expense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can deduct that from the income. Or the mortgage interest on your house. Chances are you could probably deduct that interest, meaning you'll never owe that back to the government. When you put money into a qualified plan, you're deferring your tax bill. You're not deducting it. You deduct it off of that year's income, but it's going to show up whenever you take that money out.
Sure.
So this is what I was saying, where the advisor is going to charge you a fee on that full amount, the part that goes to the IRS and the part that goes to you.
Right.
But when you pull that out, you're going to owe the income tax. But we don't know the tax bracket in which we'll be in at that time.
Matt, something that I have talked about before is, and honestly, again, I taught history and economics to high school students.
Yeah.
And I did not know about the massive swings that we have seen in the tax rates over the years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great point.
Just walk us through kind of what's been that history there, because I don't think anybody really pays attention to that history. We're excited as business owners, this Trumpian thing that just happened that we're excited about. Hey, my taxes are going to go down right now.
Yeah.
But there's pretty good chance that in either 2 years or 6 years, well,
we know that
unless something really bad happens, in either 2 years or 6 years, there's going to be someone else in charge with different ideas, and probably, and because of the nature of polarization in our country, the pendulum's going to swing. Yeah. And it's probably going to swing significantly. What does that look like over the history of the
Well, the question
the
you have to
IRS?
ask yourself is this too, is that with $20 trillion of debt that we know about, the IRS is a business just like the people listening. It's the same way. How do they make money? They either spend less.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, the IRS either spends less or they increase revenue, raise taxes.
Right.
So where are we going to be? But even Trump's plan, which kind of bummed me out, I thought we were going to get a better break than we ended up getting, but it's better than nothing. That's set to go back to where it was by the year 2024 or something, 25, I think, something like that. It's set to go back to where it was. So we're just in a little bit of a lower environment, but goodness, the highest tax bracket the year that I was born in 1982 is 50%. Mm-hmm. If I make $100,000 today, 2019, I'm in a 22% tax bracket. Okay. If I accounted for a 3% inflation rate the year that I was born in 82, $100,000 today is going to be about $40,000 of income in 1982. That makes sense?
Right.
Okay, so about 40 grand. About 40 grand would buy about what $100,000 buys today.
Sure.
In 1982, making $40,000, I would have been in a 39.6% tax bracket versus a 22% tax bracket today. Historically, we are in a relatively low environment when it comes to taxes. In the 70s, taxes were upwards of 70%. The highest tax bracket ever, 94%.
That's incredible.
Now
because that's just federal, right?
That's just federal. Think about this. A lot of people say, 94%, but that's only the wealthy. Only the wealthy pay that. Well, that's a whole other conversation that we can get into for a different
Sure.
show. But Somebody that everybody has heard of was paying that tax rate. Anything above $200,000 in 1944 was taxed at 94%. And you had Ronald Reagan in California making movies during that time. So he would make 2 movies a year. He'd make about $100,000 per movie. And after his second movie, he's at that 94% level. Well, once you add in the taxation for the state of California, he's making every dollar he made after the 200,000 mark would go right to the U.S. government. So he just took half of the year off.
Spent a lot of time at the ranch.
Lots of time at the ranch, man. That's how he got to be such a good horse rider.
That's right. Cowboy up.
It's amazing that understanding how to spend your money is equally as important, if not more important, than understanding the gross number. And any business owner understands that. It's the gross number, my revenue is very important, but just as important is how much am I keeping?
Absolutely.
How much can I? And are we building an account that I can't even calculate how much is mine?
And this is where that differential between the deferment and deduction. I mean, the idea that you go back to that type of environment, even if you are in a lower tax bracket when you do retire, that lower tax bracket, pretty good chance that it's going to be as high or higher than the tax bracket that we have right now today, even on the high ones.
Yeah, we just proved that.
Absolutely. And the other piece to that is business owners, entrepreneurs, they expect to be able to utilize their cash in retirement in probably much the same way that they're using it today. They aren't looking at a significant drop-off in income and lifestyle and all those types of things, right? Because that's why we went out and created businesses to begin with,
yeah,
right?
What's the purpose of saving money in the first place? Eventually you want to do what with it?
Spend it.
Spend it. So why are we just calculating the accumulation and not calculating the distribution, right? How much can I spend off of this asset? Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the deferral deduction conversation, I mean, if you're working with an advisor, you got to ask the advisor, as a business owner, I'm setting up, when I put money into an IRA or a qualified retirement account, I get the deduction from the business to put money into that account.
Right.
Or my income, whatever. If it's a business owner, I would get a deduction from the business. It's an expense for the business.
Right.
You're setting up a taxable event for the employee or yourself in the retirement account. Why don't you ask the advisor, how do I get an expense in the business so I can still deduct it, not defer it, deduct it from the business, and set up a tax-free account so that when I take the money out, I'll never pay taxes on this again.
So a lot of the business owners that I know are already thinking about this a little bit, in terms of how taxes are going to affect them in retirement. And for that reason, they've converted to a Roth or set up their IRA as a Roth. And they think, oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think it's a great step in the right direction. As we get into details of how to do these things, it gets a little bit more subjective. I think the main purpose is to understand the principles, and here's the principles. And in any business, you're going to look at to increase your sales, but you also want to reduce your costs. In the financial world, there's 3 ways to reduce costs. I'm going to say it again. If you can reduce your asset management fees, a Roth still has a fee to manage.
Yep.
Typically, unless you want to do self-directed. You can reduce the market volatility. A Roth is still predicated on stock market type of stuff. Right, so if the stock market goes down, that value of your account went down.
I was doing really good until October. It was really nice.
It was a good year up until then.
And then the year went away.
If you would have put that Roth into cash, earning nothing, and the market dropped, 0% then did better than what the market did.
But again, I'm still paying a fee, so I'm still on a negative percentage.
Exactly. So in hindsight, everybody's a wealthy man or woman, right? Everyone's wealthy in hindsight. But we can't invest that way. So going into it, we have to understand what we can control. Control the fees, control the loss, and as much as you can, control the taxation. Not to say tax evasion. My gosh, this is not. We owe an income tax off of everything that we do. But
welcome to America.
It's America. But it's my right to take advantage of all 70-some thousand pages of the tax code and take advantage of where
No wonder nobody knows what the hell's in it.
70,000 pages. Even the CPAs have to do constant study just to stay up on all the changes and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot more CPA work, especially with our same audience. The folks who have their own businesses, who now they have an LLC and they're needing to figure out what that means, what the tax changes mean. And I go talk to my CPA. They have no idea.
Yeah.
They're guessing at this point what the real changes are. So we're going to make sure to provide a little bit of information on some of those changes as well in the show notes.
Beautiful. Yeah, this is great stuff. I think, again, when we teach how to filter all of these things that we go through as a business owner, as an investor, as a successful person, creating that filter and showing people how to understand things they've never thought of before is just giving them so much power in the future to take advantage of smart decisions.
Worse than haven't thought of before, I think that a lot of the thinking around retirement is just wrong. I mean, just personally, growing up in the 90s and 2000s and seeing the stock market
up and
plummet
down and up and down,
and do all that kind of stuff, that did some things to us mentally as to what's really out there and what are really the possibilities for retirement.
Yeah.
Our generation, pensions, they don't exist anymore.
Right.
We can't go get a job and then expect that to be our job for our entire lives.
Totally.
So the folks who are listening to this, a lot of them are those business owners who have gone out and done it their own way because they figured out that that's the only way to do it. And their minds, they have to figure out a different way.
So common. That's the way it's done. That's what my dad told me. That's what my friends do. It's what the coworkers at work do.
There's been a rejection of that, and I think what you're trying to do to kind of open some eyes on how retirement funds actually work and where the money gets siphoned out, either along the entire time or right at the end where you actually go to use it.
Yeah.
That's not even something that's on most people's radar.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that's a little criminal.
It totally is criminal. And no one's going to tell you because the criminals making the money off of that idea are making trillions of dollars a year. It's never going to change.
Is this why people always love bankers?
Well, you must hang out with a different group of people than I do.
Like I was just writing my banker a Christmas card.
Yeah, this
about
is a
how
lie.
much I appreciated, everything that they did for me, especially in the last quarter of the year.
Yeah.
That end of 2018 was really fantastic. So
the only way to get a bank loan is to prove you don't need it.
It's true.
And what banker is showing you where to put your assets so that they'll lend against your assets? These people don't help us. They prey off of us. And
what was that phrase from the previous show? OPM?
OPM, other people's money. When banks lend money, they're not using theirs. They're using other people's money, and they're doing it to make massive rates of return. Let me give you a quick example. I put my money in a bank at 1%, so they're going to pay me 1%.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
you take a loan out. So let's say I put 10 grand in, and they're going to pay me 1%. You take a $10,000 loan, and they're going to charge you 2%.
Right.
What's the bank's rate of return?
It sounds like 1%.
It's not. It's 100. They paid $1 to have my money deposited, and they're charging you $2 to take it. That is a 100% rate of return. They're having rates of returns in the 5 figures for some accounts. Mind you, these are the same banks that got bailed out by the government. And if you're listening to this, there's no such thing as a government bailout. It's a taxpayer's bailout. The taxpayers fund the government. The banks who make thousands of percentages of rate of return, practicing principles that they don't teach us, got bailed out by our tax dollars. And then we had to get approved to get our money back through another loan, and they're still making massive rates of return. It's a joke. For the disclaimer, I want to make sure that if you work for a bank, you are not evil. Your bosses are. No. No, but the truth is that a lot of the people that put us in these positions, I think that they haven't even thought through a lot of those aspects. Financial advisors aren't.
It's just the game, and they're playing the game.
J.P. Morgan in the 1800s was quoted as saying, "There's only one way to do business. It's the Morgan way, using other people's money to make a massive rate of return for yourself." So it's not that the bankers are evil and the downtown. I have a great relationship with the bank in my little community. I know plenty of financial advisors that help their clients. I'm not saying all these things are evil. I'm saying we need to start thinking for ourselves. And there's one simple question that you can ask yourself: how much of my assets are mine? And then whatever the number is, prove it. Take it out. When my clients say I have 200,000 of equity in my house, cool. Bring that to the next meeting. You can't do it.
Well, you could. It'll just take probably about 3 months and a lot of paperwork.
Yes. So it's not that I'm against all these things. We can use these, but to understand the rules of the game is crucial for having a successful business or having a successful, financial strategy. It's just like a business. It's the same principles. You follow the rules, and then you play the rules to the best of your knowledge. We just have to teach the rules so people can play.
Yeah, and for the most part, people don't even understand what game is being played.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's back to training day. Game ain't checkers, it's chess. If you're playing the wrong game, you're losing money. And really, we really need to focus on the fact, you started off with, you don't need a retirement plan to retire.
Right.
You need money.
Yep.
And I appreciate you spending time with me personally, going over those concepts and figuring out how to utilize and leverage my own capital so that I don't end up in the same sand trap that many of the retirees will.
Yeah, diverted your risk and gave you access to your cash, collateral, assets, money, whatever you want to call it, greenbacks, your dollars. We've reduced your risk and gave you access to your cash so you can build your business.
It's a beautiful thing.
Isn't that awesome? I mean, it's empowering people. I love it.
Absolutely. And again, this goes back to why we started this out, is to help people to understand, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And if we can shed a little bit of light on some of those things that they don't know so that they can avoid that sand trap, avoid that pitfall, avoid that thing that's going to eat them later, that's a huge win.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're here for. How can our listeners learn a little bit more about this concept and really getting into that?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have more information on the website, earnmorekeepmore.show, and there'll be different links there for my personal website for some.
Sure. Any concrete takeaway that you really want folks to actually go out and do to make this really tangible?
Here's the takeaway.
I'm going to go back to what I always go back to. I believe that you are your biggest asset and you need to invest in yourself. And everything you do with your dollar today will either help or hurt that idea. So if you put money into a retirement account, cool, no worries. You might get a match, fine. I just want you to understand the rules of the game, that's a government-controlled asset and you have very limited access. There are places you can put your money so that you have control and access before retirement and after retirement. So my rule is always the same. Invest in yourself first. Understand the game.
Beautiful. There's one thing that really sticks in my mind whenever we talk about anything like retirement plans.
Yeah.
When you are thinking about your future self, you actually disassociate from yourself.
Yes.
And in that way, future Dave, 6 months from now, that's not even the same guy.
Yeah.
That's his problem.
Much thinner. 6 months from now, I am much thinner.
Much thinner, very svelte. Getting on the tri bike, ready to do the 70.2.
There you go.
That's 6 months. But getting people to act today, based off of what is going to happen to them in retirement. For a guy like me, I'm thinking about 25, 30 years from now.
Yeah.
That's a hard jump.
It is.
And one of the things that you just mentioned, the ability to access your funds and being able, especially as an entrepreneur, I want to be able to have access to as much capital as I need.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to determine what that is because I don't know when the next opportunity is going to come up.
Yep.
And you helping me see a little bit of the light on how to gain access to some of my own cash as opposed to locking it up and putting it in a mattress that I'll see in 30 years from now.
Yeah.
And at the end of that 30 years, when I take it out, it'll get whacked in half for 75% or God knows what the tax rate is going to be at that time. That is exactly the type of message that I really resonated with me as a business owner. And hopefully we can help some additional business owners really understand that availability of cash, the availability of money to fund your business and grow. Because at the end of the day, in business, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
And if you aren't taking initiative to continue to go in with our New Year's resolution, find ways to earn more and keep more.
Yep.
And some of those are going to cost money.
Yep.
And you're going to need access to cash. And for some of the startups out there, for some of the folks who are just starting their business, you can't get money from the bank because you don't, like you said earlier.
The only way to
you
get
don't
it is to qualify.
You have to show that you don't need it.
Yep, you have to show you don't need it.
As soon as I can show I don't need money, they'll roll it out for me.
You got it.
So that is a massive takeaway, and we definitely want our listeners to focus in on how we can earn more, keep more, and really keep that New Year's resolution going into February now. We really want them to be able to do that. I'm excited to get into our second month of broadcasts, and I'm looking forward to the next set with you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. This is getting more and more fun every time we do this. I cannot wait to start hearing from other listeners about their business and how they overcame different problems that they didn't know that existed, or how you've helped them create that clear message on the website, or maybe they got some way to save more of what they've earned and keep more just by getting rid of these costs they didn't even know that they were spending.
So on the next show, we're actually going to spend a little bit of time at the beginning going into listener feedback and looking at some of the things you guys are doing to earn more and keep more. I'm looking forward to it. See you in February. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Drop the mic.
Matt, we just turned the calendar from 18 to 19, and whenever that happens, once a year we have an opportunity, and that opportunity is to really focus in and make some decisions about our lives and make resolutions. And the resolution that I would be honored if everybody who's out there listening could go and really take to heart and start thinking about in a really serious way is the resolution to earn more and keep more.
Absolutely. There's only two ways to increase your business. The first way is to increase your sales. Everybody knows this. Increasing your sales is hard to do. It might mean you spend more money. It might mean you take more risk. You have to change some things to increase the level of production that you're creating. The only other way to increase your business is to reduce the cost it took you to get there. So in your resolutions, there's one of two things you should be focusing on. How are you going to get to the next level as far as sales go? And given the sales that you've already made, how can you reduce your cost?
Let's do it. Let's get out there and earn more and keep more.
This has been a Goalpost production.
That's it for us. We are your hosts, Dave McAndrews and Matt Love. Our executive producer and creative guru is Jennifer McKinstry. Our social media director is Mark Farnes. And a very special thank you to Lansing's own Jose Moore for providing the music.
Thanks for listening.